most Washingtonians would agree with the statement that they don't need more laws, regulations. They want less. They want less taxes. They want less regulation. They want less crime. They want less traffic. And a lot of what we're seeing around here is either promoting the status quo or working to make things worse. One of those such bills was rent control. They really focused on restricting the supply side, and that's going to continue to drive rental increases in our state. And that's something that's been a priority of Representative Connors and others of how do we get out of the way to get more housing to lower costs for working families in Washington state. So like Senator Broad mentioned, there's good and bad, obviously, but the next phase is going to be the budget. I am worried that, as the revenue forecast comes out today, it's not going to paint a rosy picture, and we're going to have to make some tough decisions. And my message to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle is it's time to focus on priorities of government. We've had 12, 13 years now of just getting to say yes to everything because our budget growth has been staggering. And now we're turning that corner, and we actually need to get back to promoting fiscal discipline and focusing on what we're supposed to do and get out of the way in areas that we're not supposed to be in. So with that, I guess I will open it up for the questions.
All right, Kim, are you directing questions today?
I am. Sorry, I was put on mute. So first we'll start with Carlene Johnson with Center Square. Go ahead, Carlene.
I've got a couple of questions, sort of unrelated, I suppose, but today, Senate Bill, I think it's 5296, concerning sentences for juvenile offenders. Sounds like that is considered a bad bill from your guys' caucus. Yeah, it revises sentencing for juvenile offenses and kind of, I guess, shifts the cost too for juvenile rehab onto local jurisdictions. Any comments on 5296?
Yeah, I'll jump in here. This is a bill that came out of the Senate on partisan vote. It's one of the proposed solutions by the majority to deal with the overcrowding in our juvenile rehabilitation system. Several problems with it. One, the notion that we're going to continue to reduce sentences for, in some cases, fairly violent crimes is just wrong-headed on many fronts. But also, as you mentioned, it pushes the cost to our counties that they cannot afford. And it doesn't really get after the problem, which is not so much, I mean, if it had any positive effect, I think it would be probably in Echo Glen and unlikely to have much impact on Green Hill, which is where we really have the overcrowding issue. I think it is a legitimate effort, but a wrong-headed effort to try to give some tools to manage the overpopulation program. I just think it's not the right way to do it. We have a better bill out there in 5278 that actually gives the department more tools to manage the population in a safer, more responsible way.
Yeah, I'd agree with the senator on that.
A second question I wanted to ask about, I'm sure you're aware, Let's Go Washington filed another initiative yesterday because it seems that HB 1296 has been resurrected, perhaps in, with concerns about 5181 and the original initiative that was filed a week or so ago. These people need to stop coming through the door. Do you have any thoughts about this and what might ultimately end up getting passed as far as undoing the Parents' Bill of Rights?
Well, I haven't actually read the initiative yet, so I won't comment on that. But I will say 1296 last week was the 5 o'clock bill from the House Democrats, and it was clear that while House Republicans were arguing about making sure parents had access and supports for their students, the House Democrats were in a whole different world about protecting students from parents, and we heard some pretty upsetting comments from the Democrats with their lack of concern for parental access. I think it's important that we understand where that original initiative came from, and it is a continuing trend where parents don't trust their schools and they feel like their schools are intentionally hiding things from their kids. And that is the worst way that you can drive support for public education, is by continuing to interject your government view of how children should be raised with what the fundamental duties of a parent is, which is to raise and protect their kids. So I would imagine that there is a much bigger fight to come from the public, who is largely on the side of parental rights, if the majorities continue to push either of these bills through to the governor's desk, unwinding what they all agreed to last year. And I think the people see right through it. They realize it's not a cleanup bill, that this was a way to gut this because the Democrat majorities disagree with the fundamental principles in it.
Carleen,
Yeah, I
did you
would add, 5181 passed out of the Senate was a bad bill. I would say 1296 is an even worse bill. Both bills basically separate parents from their children. They undermine the relationship between parents and the school districts, neither of which is good for our children. So here we have the majorities when our schools are suffering, when our kids aren't getting the academic education they need and deserve. They're undermining the entire program by trying to remove parents from the equation. It's just wrong.
Carleen, I would just add, you saw how many amendments that we put on in the House on the underlying bill, as well as each other section that we were worried might come forward. But we did try to do a referendum clause in that final bill, which was declined by the majority party to take it back to a vote of the people if this bill were to pass. And I truly think the majority party does not want a vote of the people on this issue, because it's not a winning issue for their side, where we have parents that are really concerned about what their kids are going through these days.
Yeah, and to add to that, she's absolutely right. Not only did they reject a referendum clause, they have an emergency clause in there to prevent the people from going out and having their own referendum. And nothing to me says we know this is unpopular and we shouldn't be doing this, like saying, oh, your constitutional right of referendum, we're gonna avoid that by slapping an emergency clause on it.
Carleen, did you have a follow-up?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. And next we'll go to Drew Mickelson from King 5. Go ahead, Drew.
Good morning. Thanks for making time for us. Yesterday, there was a rally on the Capitol steps where folks were calling for tax increases as opposed to cuts or furloughs. Senator Frame was speaking to the group, and she said, not a direct quote here, but that she thought they would be quite pleased with the budget proposals that come out next week. And leadership has not been shy to say that they also intend to have tax increases as part of their proposals. And they claim they have a good mandate from the voters last November who supported some of their progressive taxes and or progressive measures in the past. And we know that your party has released a no cuts budget, and the governor says he wants taxes to be a last resort. Are you pretty much prepared for taxes to be part of what we see next week? And I do have a follow-up.
I mean, I think it's pretty clear. It's been clear from the beginning of the session. They think taxes are part of the answer here. I think the question is how many and how much and what is the impact on our constituents, on the citizens around the state, that are already struggling to afford to live here in the state of Washington. We've shown, and Senator Gildon can talk about it, you can do a budget that doesn't require new taxes, that maintains services, increases funding for education, takes care of a vulnerable. We can do all this. We can live within our means. They simply don't want to. They instead choose enormous new spending in a year. We can't afford it, and their solution is taxes to pay the bill. I think they got this entirely wrong. They'll say that the passage of the initiatives last fall showed that the voters are okay with new taxes. What they don't seem to be mindful of is the campaign that went into that was nearly 50 million to 5 million, 10 times. So what they should take out of that is they can buy an election if they have enough money. I don't think that happens this time. The more recent polling, both the Elway poll and a more recent poll, but from the Seattle, I think it was the Seattle Chamber that did it, say people in the state of Washington expect the legislature to live within its means. 76% say they don't want new taxes. 77% say they understand that if there are new taxes, that will get, one way or another, will get pushed into the cost of living. I think they're on the wrong track. We'll see. We're going to try to make it clear that this is bad for the people of the state of Washington if they want to spend more money and tax more to pay for it.
Drew, I can just add on a little bit there, if I may, is, you know, the debate about taxes aside is let's look at the future economic security of our state. We've got a lot of uncertainty at the federal level. We don't know if tariffs are coming, if tariffs are not coming. We don't know what's going to happen at the federal level with Medicaid coming into our state. There's a lot of uncertainties. So should the legislature this year pass a budget that depletes our rainy day fund and increases taxes anywhere on the scale of $6 to $13 billion, I would imagine, what happens should the federal government change Medicaid reimbursement rates? What's going to happen to our budget next year? I think not passing all of these taxes this year is the responsible thing to do to give us options in the future years. You know, I've always said life's good as long as you have options. If they pass all of these taxes this year, we're not going to have many options next year. So I think it's the responsible thing to do is to not pass these taxes.
Yeah, I'd like to go back to that mandate for progressive revenues. I think that was entirely the wrong message to get out of the initiatives. I think Senator Braun was right in the point that, yeah, you can spend a ton of money, but I think it's worse than that. I think we've seen a disdain for the initiative process from the majorities here in Olympia, where they continually try to undermine it and create hurdles and barriers in order for them to be less effective, right? You saw it with the ballot titles being written by a partisan elected office. You now have a fiscal impact statement that's written by a partisan office that gets put on there. And so that can all lead to voter confusion. I can't speak to the other members on this call, but I know I had lots of people tell me that they thought they were supposed to be voting no to stop those things, not voting yes to repeal them because of that messaging. So I think the mandate that they got was wrong. And I think that is not where we're going forward. And if you look at what got us into this situation, right? In the 6 years, the 3 bienniums I've been here, we have overspent our revenues by almost $9 billion. And part of that was taking out $4 billion from our rainy day fund when we didn't need to and spending it on ongoing problems. So taxes now will not solve this into the future. We'll be back here next year and in 2 years with the same fundamental problem. We are spending more money than we take in, and it is going to cost us. And the people that are going to end up getting hurt in the end are the people of Washington State. And so that is why I'm pleased with Senator Gildon's and their team's budget that they rolled out. We're looking at our options because there is an alternative way, and we want Washingtonians to know that there are people in Olympia that believe that we should live within our means, just like we ask and just like Washingtonians are expected to do all across the state.
And I would just add, Drew, that my email inbox does not reflect Senator Frame's comments probably on the House steps. Our email inboxes have been flooded with people that are saying, please, no new taxes, especially if we've seen property rates go up, people's their property taxes have gone up so much that they are very, very concerned, especially with the property tax bills raising from 1% to 3%, as well as B&O taxes and taxes to increase their fishing and hunting licenses. Our emails are just flooded with these things where people are very concerned.
Drew, do you have a follow-up?
I do. Hopefully it's a quick one. I know a number of you have been meeting somewhat regularly with Governor Ferguson on the budget and knowing where he stands and what we may be getting from Democratic leadership. Do you expect this year to go into a special session?
Yeah, I think that's $1 million question, Drew. I don't know that I have a good answer. I think that once they, it depends on the level of pushback. If the Democratic majority pushes forward with a tax and spend budget with a lot of new taxes, and there is a significant pushback from the citizens, which I think there will be, I think that could likely push us into a special session. If there is some of the more thoughtful members on the other side of the aisle say, no, we see that there's a way to do this without new taxes. We don't think we should. I think that could push us into a special session. And I think maybe the least likely but possible is if there's movement on the federal budget that affects us in a meaningful way, either with Medicaid, as Senator Gildon suggested, or maybe higher ed, then I think that could put us in a special session. Although I frankly, with the continuing resolution, I think that's unlikely to happen until later in the year.
Yeah, I would just add, House and Senate Republicans have stated we're willing to work with Governor Ferguson to pass good legislation, and I'm gonna hold him to his word from his speech when he was sworn into office. Right, he wants to work on bipartisan solutions for Washington State. We're here to help where we can, and obviously we will definitely push back where appropriate with the House and Senate majorities. Because we believe that that's in the best interest for Washingtonians to not raise taxes. But again, we're all providing a solution here. We're all saying we're here to help and not just be obstructionists. So we've got options for Democrats that show a different way.
I think the most important thing that Governor Ferguson has said, he said he wants to look at savings before taxes. He hasn't said he won't sign taxes, but the most important thing he said is he doesn't want to do this every year. If he's genuine in that, he doesn't want to do this every year, you can't solve this with a tax and spend budget. We have to get our spending under control if we're not going to have this same problem next year and the year after.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next, we will go to John Stang with Cascade PBS. John, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. This is a question out of sheer ignorance because when you mentioned Jeff Hawley's bill didn't make the cutoff, was that the $100 million
Yes.
For a police bill? And if so, have the Democrats talked to you guys saying, yeah, the bill's dead, but we'll stick it in the budget anyway? Because everyone always sticks things in the budget at the last minute.
Well, what we do know is that there has been public support for the notion that you can do this through the budget. There is a House bill that came over, although it's not in a form that I think either the House Republicans or the Senate Republicans like. It is a bill that could be modified and do it through a bill. It just wouldn't be Senator Hawley's bill.
Okay, have you guys gotten any assurances from the Democrats saying, yep, we're going to get the $100 million through, we're just going to do it our way instead of your way?
We have not received those assurances. There are certainly folks in their caucus who think this is a good idea and have supported it. It came pretty strongly out of committee in the Senate. I think there was a decision by the Senate Democrats to hold the bill once the House bill came across, even though they recognized the bill wasn't in an ideal form. So no assurances in this area, but I do think there's still a clear path.
Yeah, I would just add, they don't, I don't have any details. They don't typically share those with us. We're typically finding out what they're going to propose in their budgets when the media and the public is. So we would obviously, and I've pushed, I know Representative Connors has pushed to have us in the room to help make those decisions, because we do represent a large portion of Washington State. But unfortunately, we're on the outside looking in right now.
Thank you.
Other questions, John?
No, thank you.
Okay, so we're going to end a little early today, and thank you everybody for joining us. And I'm going to kick it back to Senator Braun for closing comments.
All right. Well, thank you, Kim. Thank you, everyone, for being online today. We have this is a little bit of a short slowdown in the middle of the session as we ramp up for committee work, starting, I guess, last week, but it's really going to get serious this week. We appreciate all the work you do, keeping the citizens informed, and we look forward to continuing to work on our priorities. Again, public safety, affordability for Washingtonians around the state, and our K-12 public education system. Have a great day.